I'd like to welcome our friends in that absolutely beautiful room in Bordeaux. I'd like to be there as well at this very moment. Ilua Jacob is the MD of Chateau. You're going to curse me for my pronunciation. I needed Rosemary to do the French words, but Focus Hostin. Marie Latour is the MD of Chateau Jean Foray. She's not here with us today. And then Lisa, the sales and wine tourism manager at Chateau de la Dauphine. And these are the three leading figures working towards a greater organic landscape in Bordeaux by managing organic and biodynamic activities in their respective estates. And I know that's also a very big thing in South Africa, probably with a bit more difficulty than in France. But as a group, they've worked together over the past few years to share ideas and experiences and working towards a common goal for all of them to be 100% organic and even go further with a holistic, sustainable approach to winemaking. They are practicing biodynamics, transhumance, soil studies, replanting programs, and they all play a part, and this all plays a part in their fascinating stories, which we'll be hearing today. Vineyard practices at all three are now 100% organic, with organic certification across the board for all the latest vintages. And all three also practice a range of biodynamic methods. Marie-Laure is not here with us today, but her place is taken by Olga Shirieva, who is the export manager for Chateau Jean Four. And I'd like to welcome you all, and we look forward to this because for me personally, it is also a very big thing in South Africa for us to farm sustainably, as is the rest of the world. So I'm going to hand over to Brenda.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, those who I know and those who I don't know. I just wanted to, before we, each of the speakers talk about their properties and what they do in terms of organic and biodynamic winemaking. So as Winnie said, these are three properties in Bordeaux that got together to create Naturally Bordeaux, a group that was created 3 years ago in 2020. So they have, they have a lot of common ideas. They work together through Naturally Bordeaux, of course, and also have been working together with David Pernay, who's one of the Bordeaux's leading organic viticulture consultants. All three of them are involved in Best of Wine Tourism Awards as well, with the Great Wine Capitals. And we're here at the CIVB, so in the premises of the Bordeaux Wine Council, where they often get together with other winemakers and other negotiants to talk about the environment, certification, and other procedures that are put in place by the CIVB. And in terms of the activities that they do, the goal is to communicate about what each of them are doing. As I said, some are doing things that are quite similar and others that are quite different because they're in different appellations, etc. So we've done similar webinars like this in the US and in the UK, and we'll continue in the future to do more, to get the word out. So, as I said, we are at the CIVB, and well, I wanted to give you just a sort of like an overview of where Bordeaux is in terms of environmental certification. The figures that I'm showing you here date from last year, 2022, but apparently in the next, I'd say, week or so, we will get more recent figures for 2023, and I'd be happy to share that with you once Andrea, I can send that information over to you once we get the official figures from the CIVB. Just to tell you where Bordeaux is today, in terms of environmental certification, there are today over 75% of the vineyard that has some sort of environmental certification. So we're talking not necessarily, organic or biodynamic certification, but there's also the high environmental value certification. As you can see, there are nearly 1,300 properties that are certified organic or in conversion. And so 23% of Bordeaux vineyards are actually organic. And it's actually for many people quite surprising when you see that it is, the vineyard in France by area, which is the #1 organic surface area, organic. And in terms of biodynamic, because we have some producers here today that are also certified biodynamic, there are 98 properties. So that was just to give you a little overview before we talk about La Dauphine, Jeanfort, and Faucassasson. So just to point out where they are situated geographically, we have La Dauphine in Fronsac, Jeanfort in Saint-Emilion, and Faucassasson in L'Istral. So over to you, Lisa, who will talk about Château de la Dauphine.
Yes, thank you, Brenda. Je vais juste baisser ça. So first, hello everybody, and thank you for coming. And just I would like to give you the certain dates very important for us at La Dauphine. So first, it was during the 18th century because the Princess of France, so the Dauphine of France, Marie-Josepha of Saxony, so mother of Louis XVI. And so she came at the chateau because our wines were poured in Versailles. So that's why we have the name Château de la Dauphine, meaning Chateau of the Princess. So then in 2000, the previous owner bought the chateau and he invested a lot. Then we have another French family, the Labouin family in 15, who continues the work of the previous owner. And so that's why we had the 15, the organic certification, and the 2017, the biodynamic certification. And so at the chateau, we have 70 hectares, 173 acres, made with 80% of Merlot and 20% of Cabernet Franc. And our goal is to have 30% of Cabernet for the next vintages. And so it's linked with the global warming. And because at La Dauphine, the vineyard is made with mainly limestone. And so the Cabernet Franc and the limestone, it's a perfect match. We keep the vines for an average 36 years. And in total, for all the vineyard, we have 14 kind of different type of soil. Limestone, aspirated limestone, clay, and just the most important things is 2015 we had the organic certification, and in 15 we started the biodynamic farming, even if we are not certified. And so one of the most important things is the biodiversity, the ecosystem, because for the biodiversity, you have three main things. So you have the genetic diversity, the species diversity, and the ecosystem biodiversity. All varieties, living species on Earth. So you have the plants, the animals, bacteria, fungi. And so the biodiversity is very important because that can impact our vineyard, for example, first. And many species are being threatened. And so it's linked with the human, for example, with the pesticides. So that's why we don't use them, to protect and to preserve our vineyard and our biodiversity. And so at La Dauphine, we do different things. So we are trying to protect the flora and the wildlife. So that's why we have the pond, we preserve the field, the fallow field. We have a bat nest everywhere. We have a vegetable garden. We have bees. but we have beehives for the domestic bees and other beehives for the wild bees. And so this is all the things that we are doing yet to balance in between the human, the people and the nature, and so to preserve the vineyard, because one of the most important things is when you go in the vineyard, sure, you can have a look of the leaves, of the rootstock, but you don't have to forget the things that you cannot see, the fungus, the bacteria, all the biodiversity in the ecosystem that you have in the soil. Because if you don't preserve that, that will impact your vineyard, your grapes, your bunches, and so your wine. And another thing linked with our work, during winter, we receive sheep. And so the first year we received 200 sheep. Last year we received 400 sheep, and we worked with all the chateaux now in Fronsac. And we have them from the French Pyrenees. We do a transhumance, so that it means they come from the French Pyrenees and they arrive at La Dauphine. They stay during average 6 months. And so they bring manure, they can work the first step of the soil, and they can eat grass. So that it means we impact our work and we use less machine. And so another thing that we're doing, it's with the LPO. And so it's a French association to preserve and to protect the biodiversity. And so they came and they will come again back at La Dauphine to study the biodiversity, the birds, the butterfly, the spiders are important in the vineyard, around our plots, around our pond. And so, for example, we plant hedges all around the vineyard because the hedges are like a bridge in between them to attract and to preserve the animals, the insects, etc. And so that it means in your vineyard, if you have a good balance, that will impact, so I said, the human, so that it means we will do less action, treatments, and so pollution, because everything is connected. And so this is the things that we are doing, we are trying to do. And so that's why we have the sheep, we plant soils in the vineyard, the manure, etc. Because our goal is to use less the human activities in the land. And so this is very important because you can see how everything is linked, is connected in between the flora, the wildlife, the vineyard, and the people. How the different things will impact the other. And so, like in the wine, the most important things is the balance and the harmony in between the vineyard, the human, and the biodiversity. So thank you. And so now next is with Olga.
I'm going to take questions, maybe. Andrea, maybe it's a moment to take questions on La Dauphine.
Yes, I've just checked the chat. There's nothing there at the moment. Everybody's obviously quite absorbed in the presentation. So if anybody has any questions, please put their hand up now. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next presenter. No, I think we're okay for, is it Olga now?
Hi, my name is Olga. I represent Château Jean-Port. I work with Marie-Laure Lator, whose name you heard, and she's the director of the estate and the chief winemaker. I work in sales expert, but still I love this chateau. And I'm included in the life of it. So here you can see it on the forefront of chateau. Quite humble building. Maybe you recognize some of our a bit less humble neighbors. So Château Jean-Port is located in Saint-Emilion. It's a Grand Cru classé, but it's located not in the center of the appellation where you have the famous limestone plateau, but on the northwestern part of this appellation near Pomerol. Actually, one of our parcels is actually bordering Pomerol. We have there 18 hectares planted with different grape varieties. And here, this part of Saint-Emilion really defines our identity. We are quite different from many Château Saint-Émilion, and because, please, next one, thank you. We are very different because majority of our vineyard is planted not with Merlot, as most of us of Saint-Émilion, but with Cabernet Franc. We have 65% of Cabernet Franc planted in the vineyard. And Cabernet Franc also defines the style of our wine. So it's very floral, fresh, high acidity, low alcohol. And we have also Merlot and Malbec, but they are kind of supporting team for Cabernet Franc. We don't really push our Merlot very far away into the ripeness. We just look also to fresh fruit, and of course some roundness for Merlot. And Malbec, we love it also a lot because it's a great match for Cabernet Franc. It gives a bit of spiciness, this tannic structure, and of course color that Cabernet Franc lacks a little bit. And why? There we have a lot of Cabernet Franc. It's actually a historic variety in not only in our vineyards but in our region. It is because most of our parcel of terroir actually is situated on the soils of clay. So not on the surface, because on the surface the upper layer is clay mixed with sand, and starting from 40-60 centimeters it's pure clay. So these two levels of our soils are perfect for Cabernet Franc because, well, first of all, Cabernet Franc is a bit late ripening versus Merlot. So it needs some warmth. It needs this upper soil with the sandy soils that leave the warmth reach through the soil to the roots. But at the same time, Cabernet Franc is very sensible to hydric stress. It really doesn't like when there's no water. So here clay helps us a lot. And please, next slide. You can see it here, like the real pit that we made. And you can see the grayish part is the sand and a bit of limestone. And when it's red iron color, it's pure clay. And clay, of course, it's good for Cabernet Franc, but it's also important for climate change, for our new reality. Now we see more and more very hot and very dry vintages. For example, 2022, that is now released on Primeur. And this clay really helped us a lot in this year and more years to come, without a doubt, unfortunately. So clay is both a good reservoir for the water. It is also fertile, so it gives a good amount of nutrients to the roots. However, the next, we also need more nutrients, and this journey to find more balance and more nutrients in the soil. So it started in the beginning of 2000 with the new owner. So now the chateau is owned by a French family called De Salles. They bought the chateau in 2004. When they bought it, it was already a lot of Cabernet Franc, but it was a conventional vineyard. And they moved here to the chateau. So, of course, as people living in some place, from the start, they banned all the most dangerous things like chemical pesticides, herbicides. Then step by step, they turned to organic vine growing. We were organic certified in 2017. And then the ICO and the high environmental value. And now, since 2020, we are in conversion to biodynamic. And so this year, 2023, this vintage will be the first where we'll have the logo for Biodivin on our label. And of course, all these organic and biodynamic practices, a lot of these philosophies are dealing with the health of the soil, with life in the soil. So what we do and what we don't do to maintain this soil, the life in the soil. well, first of all, what we don't do, of course, the absence of these very dangerous, aggressive chemicals, they don't kill the organisms that are living in the soil naturally. Well, that's already a very good start. But to support this, we plant some cover crops like cereals or legumes to create more structure in the soils. And we also bring some compost to the soils and also biodynamic compost and biodynamic preparations like 500, which is a common human. I cannot doubt it. And so here we are, our beautiful vineyards, all with us, with this plant, the buds, the next please. And what is the life in the soil? So you can see it's the soil can be a habitat of a lot of different organisms, the fungi, the microbes, animals, insects, the worms. All this on one hand, with the plant, it creates the structure. So the plant with its roots kind of keeps the soil. It prevents erosion. At the same time, the worms and the small animals, they make channels into the soil that facilitate the drainage and the oxygen penetration to the soils. Of course, roots, they also live in organisms, so they need not only water, but also oxygen. And what's also very important, this organism is what can, let's say, digest the organic matter, and to make these nutrients like calcium, potassium, etc. They can convert it into the form that can be taken up by the roots, because well, this is of course very important. That's why we do this. And this next one. As Lisa said, in the vineyards that are managed in an organic biodynamic way, everything is connected. So of course, when the soil is alive, we have a lot of plants. It also helps the biodiversity outside in the air. So I don't know if you can see this baby hair on the photo. So we have a lot of animals too who come to our winery. And another thing, of course, that is connected to this, we'll speak a lot about the vineyard, but of course, the aim of every wine producer is to make the wine, and to make the best wine possible from this terroir. We have to have the best seller, and this is what we do. What we did just last year. We renovated our cellar. On the visual, it is pretty much the same picture that you saw on the first slide, but inside we really renovated all the temperature control. We now have more liberty we chose the tanks of different sizes so that we have more liberty with the parcel fermentation, etc. Because we are in biodynamics, so in biodynamic, the things that we can do in the cell are very limited. We cannot add any yeast, we cannot add any enzymes. So we have to be really careful. We have to really watch a lot our wines and to act very quickly with some temperature, for example, if needed. And like this, we make our better. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm here for you. If not, hello.
Thank you, Olga. Again, I think the questions haven't started coming. As I say, I think people are paying more attention to your presentations. So if we could just hand over straight to Eloi.
So I'm Eloi. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. So I'm the manager of Chateau Fourcade-Saustin, and I will present you how the new owner, who are Fourcade-Saustin since 2006, wanted to preserve this environment at Fourcade-Saustin. They fell in love with this winery because you have a vineyard, but you also have a park of 3 hectares classified with lots of trees. You have a small part of forest, and they really fell in love with that because you were in the nature, and they wanted to produce wine, so they find the perfect vineyard for that. So they really want to preserve this vineyard to transmit it for the next generation, their children. So when they arrive, the first thing they have to do, they have to observe a lot their vineyard to understand what they could do to improve and preserve more the environment. So the first thing was the diagnosis of the vineyard and also of the team by asking them what they did in the past and what was their experience of the previous vintage. So the second thing was to take the wine, because to know how they produce wine depending on each vintage. How was the impact of the vintage, the sun, the clouds, the rain on the year, just to observe the behavior of the vineyard. And after that, they did a field observation. First, the soil, to know the terroir. After the vines, the behavior, what kind of vines in each soil, and also the microclimates, because there are two big blocks, and you have different microclimates on this vineyard of 50 hectares. After that, they decided to do a map of the different soils. So to do it, we needed to do soil splits to observe the kind of soil, and also to observe the roots of the vines to determine how the vines behave in this soil. And so we still continue to do pits every year. Each time we pull out a plot in order to decide which rootstock and which variety we will plant adapted to this kind of soil. So after all these pits, we have determined lots of terroir, but three main ones. One with lots of clay and limestone on the left, one with mainly clay, little limestone under, but mainly clay, really cold soils, these two soils. And the third one was a gravel soil with clay under, but really warm soil. So three mainly different soil. And so they did map of this soil of the vineyard. So here is one part of their vineyard with more gravel soil in pink, gravel on clay in brown, and more clay in green. After this observation on these pits of the soil, they also did analysis of the soils, the leaves, on the shoots of the vines in order to understand how the vines were able to take all the nutrients in the soil. So this was a good way to understand if the vines were adapted to the soil. We also did a map from the air to observe the vigor of the vineyard. So you can see on this map the two parts of vineyard we have. In green, it's more gravel soil. In blue, it's more clay soil. But when you observe each plot, you can see some parts are more vigorous than others. So this helps us to determine where we should change the rootstock. So here you have the map of the vineyard now planted. So on the left, it's gravel soil where when they purchased, it was mainly Cabernet Franc. And as say Olga, Cabernet Franc need clay, so it was not adapted to this soil. So they decided to pull out Cabernet Franc, to plant Cabernet Sauvignon because it was adapted to this gravel soil, really warm, and where you have pink color, it's Merlot, and also varieties of white vines that they decided to plant because we had a limestone plateau. So after this map and all this observation, we determined the soil where we could plant Merlot and Cabernet Franc. So Merlot was well planted, but Cabernet Franc was not well planted. So we decided to pull out the Cabernet Franc to plant a better variety and to determine in which plot we could plant Cabernet Franc, which is mainly clay and limestone soil. On clay and limestone soil, we had a cold terroir where we wanted to create a new project. The white varieties were well adapted, and so that's why in 2012 we planted Sauvignon Blanc, Sauvignon Gris, and Semillon. And that was also a way to introduce organic in the vineyard. So in 2012, we began to work organically on the white varieties, and after we expanded it on the rest of the vineyard. So here you have on 2 hectares a multi-phase of the different vertical press we do. So it's only 2 hectares, but a big diversity of terroir. So different rootstock, different varieties, 3. And so we also do harvest depending on the perfect maturity of each part in order to have a more complex wine. On the gravel soil, we planted Cabernet Sauvignon. So here it's plantation of Cabernet Sauvignon and Petit Verdot, because for Petit Verdot to reach maturity, we need warm soil with clay under. And so we have planted them on the highest point with lots of gravel in order to reach maturity, but with clay under. After all this work of more than 10 years, during this work, they have decided to convert in organic with the white varieties, but also to convert part of plots in biodynamic and to work differently. So no more weed killer, no more chemical, mechanical weeding, green manure with cereals. For example, you can see here in the vineyard that we plant every year in order to decompact naturally the soils. And we also practice biodynamic. So we have the team, for example, here spraying the 500 in order to reach to say to the vines that it's spring and we need to prevent them from the disease that can happen in the future.
Eloi, could we just ask one question? Stephen Skelton was wondering which rootstocks you're using.
It will really depend on the soils. We have a big diversity of rootstock. On the gravel soil, it's mainly 101-14 and Gravzac on a part where we don't have lots of clay, so we need vigorous rootstock or the vines will die. And on the clay soil, we have 101-14, we have 420, and we have a Fercal where we have lots of limestone. And if we don't put Fercal, we say chlorose. The leaves become yellow. So we really adapt on each plot, and often in one plot, we divide in 2 or 3 parts.
Is that okay, Stephen? And also Keith Granger has a question. Keith, did you want to ask the question?
Hi. Always curious about the use of copper and how this can be reduced in the vineyard. It seems to me that there isn't much that's as effective against the mildews, but can you reduce use by adjusting the canopy management?
In fact, copper impact of the soil, of course, but it's not the copper we are using now, because in organic we are limited in quantity of copper per hectare. So we will spray 10 times during the year, 10 to 12 times, but we reduce each time the proportion. So in 12 spraying, we will spray around 2 big spraying of copper that they did each time before. For example, when you are not organic, when you are with chemical, most of the conventional use copper at the end of the year, just before harvest, to protect the leaf. And during the 2 last spraying, they use often more than us during all the year. So it's a wrong, it's not the right way to speak about problem of copper. The problem of copper we have is what we did in the past before chemical arrived. We were using lots of copper because we had nothing else. And so we sprayed big quantities and this copper is in the soil. But we can't see impact on the vines. Of course, we know it's not good for the environment. So that's why we decided to reduce this concentration. And that's why using plants, having life with biodiversity help to do aeration and to disrupt this copper. Yeah.
No, it's just I wanted just to add some small thing that well, with the canopy management, I'm not sure you can really do this, but for sure you can be more efficient when you spray. Because, for example, we have at Château Jean-Fort, we have this special tracking techniques. So every time the tractor passes, we have like these small detectors on the leaves, and we can calculate that every plant is well covered. So already the fact that we know that everything is good protected and we don't, this is good. Also, well, I don't know the patine, you know, when I don't remember how it's in English, the rognage. Yes, for example, it's much more efficient to spray after this, because if you want to spray this small thing that is coming out, you spray out a lot of product into the atmosphere without. So there are like small steps that everyone can take, but canopy management just helps with the aeration, and it cannot help with the efficiency of your copper.
And also now the machine, if you have your 2 rows like this, they are going here and we are spraying like this, and not like they were doing before, like this, going to the soil directly. So we are really spraying in front of the leaves and not on the soil.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Eloi. Back to your presentation. Thank you.
So I just end with our new salaries who are working on eating the copper. It's a joke. So it's our new strategy of trying to compact less the soil. So using animals. So during winter, they save us time because they eat the grass. So we have less work during spring when it's growing. And it's also part of the biodiversity. So thank you for your attention, and feel free to ask lots of questions.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know, Brenda, were each presenter just going to say a short summary about how they feel, you know, the advantages of working together?
Yeah, sure. So,
sorry.
I had a question as well. I think it was too long, Andrea, so you missed it.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to know from the panelists how the new varieties that have been approved for Bordeaux have been perceived and accepted, and are people actually embracing that in terms of sustainability and climate change?
Well, I think it's a difficult question because on our chateau and most of the cru classé in this universe, I wouldn't say that there are a lot of people who plant the new varieties, and we really all work more on the adaptability of our current vineyards and current variety to the climate change. And I think with the canopy management, with the cover crops, with the biodiversity and organic and biodynamic, we really achieved something. I think that very good example is 2022, because 2022 was very hot and dry. However, at many of the chateaux, well, not only us, but in general, Bordeaux is in a very good direction right now. So many of us succeeded in preserving good acidity in the final product, in the wine. And well, at least in our opinion, in Chateau Jean-Paul, I don't know if you guys agree with me. The cover crops and the more alive soil and protected the soils. So we had a big difference of temperature between the temperature of the air and temperature of the soil, and the acids, especially tartaric acids, depends not only on the air temperature but also on the soil temperature, and that's how we had in the end good pH and good acidity and good freshness. And I think these kind of small things what helps us. However, on the numerates, I don't know. We, for the moment, for us, we don't plant them. Maybe we'll hide.
At Focus it's the same. We are on a cold terroir at the highest point of the Medoc. So even 22 really warm vintage where you could have 16 degrees of alcohol, we are at 13. So without changing anything. And we know that if we cut the vines lower, we can reduce 0.5 degree or 1 degree. After not too much in order to have maturity of tannin, but we have other tools before we change all our varieties. On something simple, where you have Merlot, you can easily put Cabernet Franc because we need clay, and you will have more freshness in your wine. That's what Jean Fort, that's what Focus is doing, and what La Dauphine is doing also.
And yes, the last things, for example, you have the importance of the terroir, like they explained. And for example, at La Dauphine, we have Carrier and the Grand Carrier, and you can see the rootstock through the limestone, and you can see the water. So that's why the terroir, you cannot buy it, you can just have it, and you have to work with the nature offers to you. And for example, I suppose if the people from all around the world, they come in Bordeaux, they want to taste and to know and to understand the Bordeaux wines. And so for us, I suppose you want to keep your identity, the identity of our vineyard, and to work with the things that we have directly in our property.
And sorry, just to ask another question about white varieties. I know that Eloi referred to more plantings of Sauvignon Blanc. Is that throughout Bordeaux, or is that specific producer?
It's really because we had a map of our vineyard, of the different soils, the different microclimates, and that before planting, we always look the soil, do analysis, and say, okay, the potential of this terroir is this variety, and we won't plant white varieties if it's not for white wine, this terroir. So we have more Sauvignon Blanc because we had 1 hectare of pure limestone where we could keep lots of freshness in the wine. And we can observe it because on a warm year like 22, with young vineyard, 10 years old, we have 3.1 of pH. So that really show we can do great wines even with the global warming.
Because for me, I mean, I've always felt that I've loved all the white Bordeaux's that I've ever tasted. And to me, there's just not enough of them.
The white.
Yeah, because I mean, I come from a warm country, so I drink a lot more white wine than red wine, but we don't really get or have access to, and even when I'm in London, I don't really have a lot of access to white Bordeaux's as opposed to red Bordeaux. And I just think that is such a lovely wine from Bordeaux, but we don't see enough of it. I mean, are people producing more premium red rather than a premium white?
I will send you a bottle of Focus white. For us, it's a premium. No, but we have exactly the same way of thinking at Forecast Austin. We planted these white varieties because we wanted to do a premium white wine. So it's only 8,000 bottles per year, and we won't do more. Yeah, but we won't do more if we don't have the right terroir. If we do it more, when we will pull out, for example, an old plot of Merlot, if we can confirm that the soil is adapted to Sauvignon Blanc, of course, we can decide to plant it. Yeah. But if it's not, we won't do it.
Yeah, no, of course not. But I mean, I just feel throughout, and I mean, this has nothing to do with this discussion, is that the whites don't get the same airtime as the reds. And I think sometimes I actually love just to drink a Bordeaux white because they're also pure and beautiful and very distinct. And we don't really get that enough.
Okay.
We listen to it, we will check.
Thank you.
You have some at La Dauphine?
Yeah, we are doing white wine too, so it's exactly the same thing like Chateau Foucault Austin, because it's around 2 hectares, so it's pretty new. We are doing white wine since 2019, so it's recent, and it's around 500, 1,000 bottles, so it's a tiny production. And that's why we are together, because we have the same way to work, because it's not plastic white wine. We want to do a high quality white wine. And like Edouard, we don't plant white grapes because we want just to improve and increase. No, we have to think exactly about the terroir, but the work that we have to do, because yeah, the terroir is one of the most important things, and so you have to know exactly what the terroir you have to plant your rootstock then, and so that's why it takes time to improve and to increase the quantity and the quality. But yeah, we listen, we hear your discussion, and so that it means for the next time we have to bring a bottle of white wine for you. We remember.
Thank you very much.
And so that it means at Chateau d'Enfant you have to do white wine. We'll make a bill.
Thank you. Keith Granger had a quick question.
Yep, just before my question, and I'm very careful what I say with Rosemary here, in fact, but probably the greatest white wine I've tasted in my life was not from Chablis or anywhere else in Burgundy, was actually from Bordeaux, and Chateau Haut-Brion Blanc, 2009 vintage, absolutely stunning. And I can still taste it even now, although I originally tasted it, what was it, 7-8 years ago. My quick question though is on the weather, a bleak climate this year. What's the state of vine growth this mid-June compared with 2022 and perhaps the last 10 years or so average?
It's little later than 22. I will say 10 days, maybe later. And compared to the 10 last year, we are maybe 1 week earlier. But you have so many time before harvest that it can quickly change. Yes. And maybe we will have a late vintage. For me, it will be a classical vintage, let's see. It will depend on July and August, of course. But for the moment, everything is perfect, homogeneous, and good potential of yield. And the most important is that it's homogeneous. The flowering was really homogeneous the last week.
Thank you.
Thank you. There was just one quick question as well from Stephen Skelton, Alois, about what type of grafts are you using, Omega or Greffe Anglais?
Ils ont posé la question. Il y avait 2 types de. Can you show us, please, the chat? Alors, ils t'ont demandé quel type de porte-greffe tu mettais, des porte-greffes Omega ou des porte-greffes anglais.
It's Omega graft. Because we have no problem after we control it with the company would do it because we can't do it ourselves. And in fact, it's the method, but also the way how they keep humidity when they graft it. So if they graft and it's dry, you will have problems in the future. If they graft omega with good humidity and wax around and keep this humidity, we never had any problem since I practice it since more than 20 years. And but I'm confident I still have the same people producing it for what I plant. I don't change. I believe what he's doing is good.
Okay, thank you very much. I haven't seen any more questions at the moment, so I don't know if it's an appropriate time now for the producers to each to give a summary of the Naturally Bordeaux.
Okay, so I'm starting. So just we work together because we share the same sustainable practices, the same philosophy, and we are complementary together. So we have different knowledge, for example. And so, yeah, I think we enjoy time. So that's great because yeah, it's perfect.
Exactly. There are actually many associations in Bordeaux. There are even CVB, where we are right now. There are some others like Union de Cancun, but we are special for us because it's more like a group of friends. It's very we are really close. We talk a lot, of course, with Brenda too, not only the chateau. And it's all in a good mood and vibe, and it's always a pleasure to work together. It's really...
And yes, as they say, Naturally Bordeaux, it's also a group where we can exchange ideas. For example, Jean-Paul has experience with Cabernet Franc on clay, so I use their competence to improve at Fourcade-Saustin. So we have really a synergy between the three wineries, and that's positive for us. And also something important, I think, as Brenda showed at the beginning, Bordeaux is greener than what we think, than what people think. And so I'm not from Bordeaux, so I'm not defending Bordeaux, but I can tell you the new generation knows the impact that they will have for the future. So we need to speak about that and say that we realize that what we did before was not good, probably. So we are changing, don't worry, and we are changing since several years. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys very much for joining us today. It was very enlightening, and it's always such a pleasure to hear from people who really embrace the sustainability and longevity of our wines. And we loved it. I'm looking forward to the white wines. Thank you.